Hello, good evening. Welcome to The Late Show. I really do appreciate the fact that you're going to put up with me for the next 50 minutes or so, because the thing is I'm not necessarily dressed properly, but you know what? I'm a work in progress, and progress is the thing that we want to make on Revelation TV. We're doing things in the behind the scenes all day long, and so I'm making some excuses why I'm on my own, and Kyle, one other person. I mean, the BBC could actually learn how to be frugal, if you like, in broadcasting. But I've got to say, what we have at Revelation TV is information. Now, whether or not you accept the information that we give you, but that is the same challenge for any network out there. You've got the BBC who are putting out all sorts of things. What is truth? You know, but you know, we need to know where we are standing today in the sea of information. And what is truth and what is a lie? What is false? What is fake? Truth from fiction. All of these sort of things, we need to gather the information as best we can and from reliable sources. So I've got quite a few things that I want to share with you. I just about made it again tonight, getting ready for this particular program. So I've got some things that we're going to go through, and myself and Carl, we're going to do the best that we can, just the two of us, and of course you at home. So the title for tonight that we've come up with is Israel, Gaza and Hamas. What you need to know. It's really the same title as Gordon's book, and we will be featuring some of the promos that have just been made for that book, because it's full of information that I think you definitely need to know. And in fact, we all think that here at Revelation TV, what Gordon has written. So we'll be featuring that. But what I want to do right now is start with a map, an Arab area, and all the stats that go with it. Now, looking at the map, you can see it's a huge area. It's on 2 continents, and really what you've got is the Arab League member states cover over 5 million square miles and straddles 2 continents, Africa and Asia. And the world's Arab population is 464 million and some. Nation of Israel land mass is only 8,355 square miles. And that's something like 500 times less than the Arab world. The world's Jewish population is 15.7 million. The Jews in Israel is close to 6.9. And the world's Arab population, as I said, is 464. But the irony is that the Arab nations have most of the world's oil wealth, and Israel, if any, has so little. And of course, you've got since 1901 that 16 Arab Muslims have been given the Nobel Prize, okay? But since 1966 only, 13 Israelis have won Nobel Prizes. Now, why am I mentioning that? Because it shows you really Israel and the Israeli people and the Jewish people have an amazing, amazing intellect and the wisdom, I believe, that comes from God. Now, obviously, I'm just trying to say and nutshell as much as I can in a very short period of time. I've got lots more stats as well, which I can share with you, but I'd also like to invite you to email in live@revelationtv.com, and that's the SMS number on your screen as well. Now, I think what would be good is to go to Gordon's book promo. We've got 5 of them, so we'll be going to the first one, which is what you need to know about Gaza, Israel and Hamas.
On the 1st of March 2024, the BBC published a story on their news about 100+ deaths that had occurred in Gaza as the people of Gaza rushed towards the aid trucks. You may remember it. Well, a Palestinian journalist by the name of Mahmoud Adayaya, who broke the news to the BBC, claimed that the Israeli soldiers had fired purposefully at the people. But was it true? A researcher of anti-Semitism, David Collier, he discovered that this Palestinian journalist was in fact connected to Hamas and the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard. He even found that he'd posted in 2023 7 Israelis who died in a terrorist attack. What had the BBC done to verify the story before broadcasting it? Want to know the truth? Well, read my chapter in this book about Israel, Gaza and Hamas. Details are on the screen.
I'd like to point out that Gordon, when he writes these books, he doesn't make anything from them personally. It's always for a donation or more of a certain figure that would actually help Revelation TV to continue to broadcast. So that's the motive behind it. It's nothing personal, but he goes to a great deal of trouble in his researches, and he felt really led to make these available, these books, because it is information that we need to know. And as each promo comes up, you'll gain more and more information as to what is the contents of that book. Okay, now what I'd like to do next is show you something that's presented not by a Jewish person. Obviously, I'm guessing that the gentleman is a Palestinian, or at least from the Arab world. And what he has to say actually might shock you, because his title for this, or I'm giving it a title, is Hamas is not your enemy, okay? Or is it? Hamas is your enemy, because some people think otherwise. Have a look at this.
To my Palestinian brothers and sisters, and to anyone who supports the Palestinian people, I implore you, please do not let Hamas brainwash you into thinking it has achieved anything on our behalf. It hasn't. Not in the Gaza wars of 2021, 2014, 2012, or 2008. Each one of these pointless conflicts has been a catastrophe, costing us dearly in lives and treasure. Hamas is not a social justice movement, and it certainly does not care about the Palestinian people. It is a criminal gang that only cares about increasing its own power. Israel is not the main cause of your suffering. Hamas is the main cause. Israel is not your jailer. Hamas is. It was Hamas that led you into this most recent disaster, is to lead us into chaos. Hamas has no ability and, in fact, no desire to govern. The water isn't safe to drink. The power goes out for hours at a time. Raw sewage washes up on your beaches. The Israelis are not responsible for these dismal failures. Hamas is. And everybody in Gaza knows it. It is Hamas that steals the imported cement meant to build houses for you and uses it instead to build a massive network of tunnels from which it hopes to terrorize Israelis. It is Hamas that makes sure humanitarian aid meant for you is diverted to its favored elites, who then sell it for a profit on the black market. And it is Hamas that uses you as a human shield, stationing rocket launchers and missile arsenals in your apartments, office buildings, schools, and even hospitals. Israel uses rockets to defend its people. Hamas uses people to defend its rockets. Israel uses rockets to defend its people. Hamas uses people to defend its rockets. As for its war strategy, Hamas doesn't have one. It fires missiles at the most highly populated regions of Israel with no specific target. Yet, I know from my sources in Gaza that as much as 25% of all rockets launched by Hamas in May 2021 crashed within Gaza. 50 Gaza civilians were killed by these rockets. Their deaths falsely blamed on Israel. Are you aware of the fact that some of the Hamas missiles that Israeli defense forces failed to intercept ended up exploding in places like Jaffa, Abu Ghosh, and Lud, where Arab Israelis live? Palestinians living in Israel are as likely to be killed as Israelis themselves. Hamas couldn't care less. And what was gained? Think about the even greater number of Palestinians who are now homeless in Gaza because Hamas choose to hide weapons in residential buildings. And when naive American and European NGOs offer millions to rebuild Gaza, who do you think will get that money? It won't be you, the people who really deserve it and need it. It will be the leaders of the Hamas gang and their friends who will add new rooms to their fancy villas. And the peace you so deserve, the peace which could have been possible when Israel withdrew entirely from the Gaza Strip in 2005, will be even further out of reach. Hamas robbed you of that chance when it set up its military gang then. It's robbing you of the same chance now. No matter how many Jews it managed to kill, Hamas will never be satisfied. It will never stop lying, but you can stop believing its lies. I am Bassem Eid for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Bassem Reed, did he say? So, and I'd like to point out that he is obviously a Palestinian, because he said in the middle of that delivery that it's costing us dearly what Hamas is doing. So he obviously is speaking in the person of being a Palestinian. I like the phrase that he repeated there as well. Israel uses rockets to defend its people, but Hamas uses its people to defend its rockets. I'm laughing. I shouldn't laugh because it's really sad. I have known for at least 30 years what's going on behind the scenes, and some of that I'll be able to share with you because I was in contact with an Israeli cameraman who was also very friendly with a Palestinian cameraman, and this was in the late 90s, and they used to send me footage from either side. And it's quite interesting when you see behind the scenes of what the Palestinians are doing. Not all of them, because there are many people, Palestinians, who do not want anything to do with Hamas, but unfortunately the rest of the world doesn't get that particular point of view. But I just want to say that Hamas is really hurting its own people. But it's winning the war as far as the media is concerned and the empathy of the people. But is that right? I think when you look at what the Bible says, it's very clear as why the nation of Israel is important to God, and believe it or not, and important to us. I'm looking and thinking back to the Abrahamic promise, which was in Genesis 12. It said, those who bless Israel will indeed be blessed. Those who curse will be cursed. So those of you who think, well, you know, I really need to get behind what's happening in Gaza because it's all wrong, because what Israel's doing, there's more to it, a lot more to it. And you could end up backing the wrong horse, if you like, okay? It's very important to get your facts right and looking at the whole history, which goes back at least 3,500 years, when there was both Ishmael and Isaac from the loins of Abraham. Ishmael became the Arab nations, and he was blessed by an angel that appeared to Hagar as they were escaping or leaving, as it were, the fold of the Abrahamic family. And they were told they were going to be mightily blessed. And if you looked at, remember that landmass that the Arab nations have got, it's 500 times larger than the little Israel which we have today. And that was even greater many years ago as well, when God blessed them and divided the land into the 12 tribes. It covered a huge landmass, but it was reduced and reduced and reduced over the centuries. So I just want you to see this in proportion to what's happening today. But coming back now to Gordon's book, I think if we go to the promo, the second promo, and hear what he has to say with regards to this particular book and what it says next.
The United Nations is one of the most prestigious organizations in the world. Couldn't have a bias, could it? How about this? From 2015 to 2019, the United Nations adopted more resolutions against Israel than Iran, Syria, North Korea, and Russia combined. There were 96 resolutions during that time against Israel, compared with 7 against Syria, 5 against North Korea and Iran, and none against China. In its lifetime, the United Nations has passed more resolutions condemning Israel than any other nation. In fact, on one occasion, the Secretary General of the UN was asked by a Jewish student whether the UN was biased against the Israeli people. His response was, "Yes, it's an unfortunate situation." Do you want to know the real story behind the United Nations and its attitude towards Israel? Details are on the screen.
I also now want to remind you what we showed last week. We had the ambassador to the UN, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, because he was really sharing his frustration at the UN, pretty much like what Gordon was saying. Many of the things that the UN is more concentrating on is Israel than anything else, and it's out of proportion to what else is going on in the world. But there seems to be a really sort of let's get Israel, let's do them in. It's a bit of a simple word, isn't it? But really coming against Israel big time. Anyway, the Israeli ambassador to the UN last week really let rip and spoke about how disgusted he was with them. And so what has he done? Well, we've got some footage that's going to follow in a second, where he actually got so fed up. Some people might think, well, it's a bit childish what he did. But on the other hand, if you could think, if you were being disregarded amongst an organization which was the League of Nations, became the United Nations, and that you were being unfairly treated, I think you'd also feel like tearing their charter up. Have a look at this.
This is you are shredding the UN Charter with your own hands. You know what you're doing today? Today you are gutting the charter, and you are doing it in the wake of the most brutal massacre of my people since the Holocaust, on the ashes of the October 7th massacre. Why? This day will go down in infamy. The UN, an organization that was established in the aftermath of the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, pays no heed to its founding charter and is advancing another genocidal regime that threatens the existence of the Jewish people. And I want the entire world to remember this moment, to remember this immoral act. So today, I will hold up a mirror for you. A mirror. This is your mirror. So that you can see exactly what you are inflicting upon the UN Charter with this destructive vote. This is you are shredding the UN Charter with your own hands. Yes, that's what you're doing, shredding the UN Charter. Shame on you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah. Okay, some of the emails are starting to come in. Let me just read this one saying, this is from David actually, and says, let me cancel that. Okay, when I say cancel that, it's just there was something came up in front of it. Okay. Hi, Howard. Yes, that man made a good speech and spoke the truth. And this was the one that he made last week. Yes, that same man you just saw on the screen just a second ago. If these people in Gaza and all the others, so Muslims that claim to be peaceful, well, then why do they still read the Quran, which tells them to kill Jews? Sorry to say it, but I don't trust them. You're talking about the Muslims. And I have to say there are good Muslims out there who would be at peace with anyone. But when you look at those who are following the Hadith and the Quran, which is very, very clear on their, if you like, their objectives. Thank you very much for the lighting. We haven't got a lighting man. But anyway, thank you for that bow. But I'd like to say that we need to know what is in there and what's driving them. Because if they all followed the Quran and the Hadith, then we'd our days are numbered, because they would kill the Jew and the Christian wherever they find them. Oh, it's very sad. Another text comes in. The problem is not one of land. No name on this one. It's not a problem of land. It's not political. It's spiritual. As Islam is identical with Nazism, says the writer here, with their core belief in the annihilation of the Jews. Just as we could not negotiate with the Nazis, but had to eliminate them, peace will only come to Gaza with the elimination of Hamas. Shalom, says Arnie. Your point of view, and you can have an opposite point of view. Please write live@revelationtv.com and the SMS number on your screen. This one's addressed to Howard and Kyle. Kyle is there's only the two of us in the studio. Amazing, isn't it, what you can do on a budget? Okay, good to see you. God's blessings to you both. We don't care how you look on the outside, it's what's in the inside that counts. And thanking you always for the two production team and presenters and the flashing light in the background. You know, I just loved it when we first launched and things would fall off the wall, the clock would fall off the wall, the heat was incredible, the lights would go bang, but we go on, we carry on, the show must go on, right? Okay, and this email goes on to say, thank you always for the production team and presenters. Our prayers are that God will sustain you in all you're carrying out his good work. Love and blessings in Jesus Christ, amen. Paul and Ruth, thanks Paul and Ruth, bless you. Okay, so coming back to my notes, where we go next, I think it's time for another promo, another one of Gordon, Israel, Gaza and Hamas, and what you need to know.
What do you know about the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which was established in 1949 to provide relief to Palestinian refugees? Well, it employs over 30,000 people to do so. And one of its major roles is the education of the children in schools in Gaza, the West Bank, and the Palestinian refugee camps. According to the Palestinian Media Watch, 75 at least of those schools are named after terrorists, Nazi collaborators, and so-called Palestinian martyrs. The textbooks that they use in the schools have been written by UNRWA teachers. They're anti-Semitic and they encourage violence and martyrdom. Let me just give you one example. Muhammad's aunt, who clubbed a Jew to death, is called a model of strength and resistance. And I do have another one. Dala Moghrabi is held up as a role model for young girls, and yet she's a lady who is responsible for the murder of 38 Israeli people, including 13 children. There's much more. And you and I are paying for those teachers and paying for those schools through the donations that our government gives to the UN and UNRWA. We need to get the truth out there, and you'll find it in this book, Israel, Gaza and Hamas. Details of how to obtain a copy are on the screen.
Yeah, Gordon touched on it. UNRWA is the organisation supposedly is just independent, but it's just been discovered this week. In fact, it could have even been today. I saw a little bit on the news about how Israel has got proof that UNRWA and Hamas are working together. And that would be awful because, you know, who's going to benefit at the end of the day is going to be Hamas. Hamas is always going to, their leaders, and we interviewed, if you remember, the son of Hamas. He was one of the main leaders, and he was the son of that main leader, and he speaks out. No matter what light goes on or off, he would speak out, and he did, and it cost him a loss of the relationship with his family because he became a believer in Christ, a Christian, and he actually spills the beans with regards to what he and his dad and the other Hamas leaders are up to, really. And they have become, just like Arafat, millionaires. because a lot of the money that's been raised, it comes through these other organizations. I'm not saying it all comes through UNRWA, but it comes through other people and organizations that support the Palestinians. And quite rightly so. We should be supporting the Palestinians as far as aid is concerned, and having, you know, sort of compassion on the way in which this whole war is affecting the Palestinians, the innocent Palestinians who are in the firing line, okay? But Hamas is there behind, hiding underneath in their tunnels. Why don't they come out and just be the brave soldiers that they showed themselves to be, on October the 7th? Did they? No, they didn't. They were killing women and bragging about it. I killed a woman, an Israeli woman, and I've killed her with my own hands with a gun and a What a brave boy he was. And his parents were saying, oh, well done, son, well done. Oh, Allah, praise God, and all of that. Enough said. Okay, BBC, and there was a Jewish person that was challenging this BBC reporter. I filmed this with my phone, so it's really bad quality, but the content is what I want you to watch and listen to.
The Israeli forces are happy to kill children.
You know, it's quite remarkable that you'd say that, because they're killing us. Now, if there's a 17-year-old Palestinian that's shooting at your family, Anjana, what is he?
Under your definition, you are calling them terrorists. The UN are calling them children.
I'm actually asking you, what would you call a 17-year-old person with a rifle shooting at your family and murdering your own family? How would you define that person?
We're not talking about that. The UN has defined them as children. The UN has defined them as children, and we know that 4 people between the ages of 16 and 18 have been killed in this targeted attack. Let's not forget, it's a targeted attack. The Israeli forces are going in looking
these are
for
terrorists.
these people.
I'm missing something. You know, a 17-year-old terrorist can murder civilians. There's a fundamental difference between what they're doing, which is explicitly and deliberately targeting civilians, and what we're doing, which is targeting terrorists. That's exactly the opposite. We're doing the right thing. They're killing civilians. And the fact that you're creating this moral equivalent, or even worse, I think it's unacceptable.
Okay, and my goodness, I mean, it's almost unbelievable, isn't it? The bias. Well, some people might say that Revelation TV is biased. Well, I can understand that as well. But we don't pussyfoot around. We do say it as it is. But the thing is, what is truth? And you need to know the history. And that's one thing, if you get into a discussion with anybody on the talk radio stations or whatever, they don't want to know what the past was. They're just looking at the now. Okay. And so what I want to do now is go to book promo number 4 for Gordon's book, Israel, Gaza and Hamas, and what you need to know.
Students are protesting in campuses across the United Kingdom and beyond. But what are they really protesting about? A YouGov poll in The Economist found that 1 in 5 young people believe that the Holocaust is a myth. 20% of young people aged 18 to 29 stated that they believe that the murder of 6 million Jews in death camps in the 1940s never happened. I wonder what planet they're on. The truth is out there, but they're choosing to ignore it, as so many are ignoring what happened in Israel on the 7th of October 2023. The New York Times decided to do an in-depth study of what happened in one village in southern Israel, where at least 97 civilians were murdered by the Hamas terrorists. They sent their hard-nosed reporters to sniff out the facts. The reporters examined all the videos, the statements, the articles, the allegations. Then they checked them, verified them, put the videos into context. There's no doubt about it, wrote one of the New York Times reporters, the murders, the rapes, the horrific attacks happened. I didn't want to, but I felt that I had to document the facts of what happened on October the 7th and why. This book, Israel, Gaza and Hamas, will tell you the truth. Details of how to obtain it are on the screen.
Just to say that the book has just become available as we this week, I think it is. So please, if you need to make the order, do that. Follow the instructions at the end of those videos. But also, just for you to know that the office will be open Monday through Friday, and it's usually between the hours of 9 in the morning in the UK till 5 in the afternoon. So 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And please be patient, because we're very few staff, as much as we've got very few presenters here, and also people that are behind the scenes like Kyle. The two of us doing a show tonight, just the two of us, and the Holy Spirit, hopefully. Amen. Okay, so what I want to explain next in the video that you're going to see is there was... there's a gentleman in the States called Mark Levine, and what he was doing is reacting to Joe Biden's, if you like, refusal and his actual very clear stance to come against Israel now and actually say, we're not going to supply any more weapons that you may be using in Gaza. Okay, and this was something which really infuriated Mark Levine. So as we watch this video, just remember that it does actually become quite heated, but have a listen, and I shall think you'll understand why.
All right, here with reaction, he is the host of Life, Liberty, and Levin. I call him the Great One, Mark Levin. You know, Mark, not only did he surrender by doing this, in America's commitment to the cause of liberty and freedom, its commitment to defeat radical Islamic terrorists, he surrendered in the war on terror. He has now emboldened every terrorist organization and terrorist state, starting with Iran. And he's done it because he basically has put political ambition and the radicals in his party ahead of what is morally right and just. There is right and wrong here, and there are victims here, and there are the victimizers, the terrorists that are responsible for all of this.
You know, let me speak to this, Sean, from my heart. You know, when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor, my grandfather was 34 at the time. He joined the Marine Corps. He wound up fighting at Iwo Jima. His buddy, his brother-in-law, my great-uncle, Teddy, he joined the Marines the same day, and he wound up fighting at Guam and the Solomon Islands. My family, we are red-blooded Americans. We love this country to the core. But I want to speak to you in a few minutes here that we have is not just a red-blooded patriotic American, but a person of the Jewish faith. And I want to speak to Joe Biden directly. Who the hell do you think you are? Who the hell do you think you are to use these blood libels against the Jewish people, that they are indiscriminately murdering Palestinian civilians, when you spew the lies of the Hamas terrorists against the Jews and unleash anti-Semitism in this country around the world like we've never seen before? Who the hell do you think you are to tell a democracy, the Jewish people that elected this government, that you don't like their government, that you don't like their prime minister, that they need to remove him and place him with some clown or lapdog that you prefer? Who the hell do you think you are to tell the Israelis that they cannot defeat Hamas, which has said, proven again and again, that they want to wipe out the Jewish population in Israel? Who the hell do you think you are to be funding Iran and Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah, arming them with our money, with money from oil sales? Who the hell do you think you are? You say you provide weapons to Israel. You haven't provided a damn thing to Israel. Congress provides weapons to Israel. You're the one violating the Impoundment Act and the Constitution by withholding it. Who the hell do you think you are, dictating to the Jewish people who survived the Babylonians, the Persians, the Romans, and the Third Reich, telling them that they cannot wipe out Hamas, which is committed to the evisceration of their population? Who the hell do you think you are to exploit the Jews here at home by going to sacred property, the Holocaust Museum and Memorial, as a political stunt, while secretly behind the back of the Jewish state, You're cutting off arms. Who the hell do you think you are when your party, your Democrat donors whip up anti-Semitism all across this country, and you don't tell them to stop, and you don't send the U.S. Marshals in there so the Jewish kids can go to school, and you don't direct the FBI to cut off this foreign funding from Qatar, your buddies at Qatar, your brother's buddies at Qatar. Who the hell do you think you are to tell the Jewish people in Israel whether they get to live or whether they get to die? I am sick and tired of you. I am sick and tired of your propaganda. I am sick and tired of your exploitation of the Jews in this country. You think that Bernie Sanders, a self-hating Jew, or Thomas Friedman, or Antony Blinken represent the Jewish people in Israel? You think the Jewish billionaires that fund you and your party represent the Jewish people in Israel? Let me tell you something, pal. You're dead wrong. Your exploitation of the Jews, your lies, I'm a Zionist, I'm ironclad with Israel, and your little propagandists, Kirby and the rest, I've had it up to here with you people. The Jews have survived more than you. The Babylonians, the Persians, the Romans, and the Third Reich. You're a pipsqueak. They're going to fight Hamas. They're going to defeat Hamas, whether they hell you and Blinken and your party and the rest of the reprobates like it or not. And when Donald Trump says, if you're Jewish and you vote for Blinken, something wrong with you, you better believe it. That is suicide. You're voting with the very people who are marching in the street who want your extermination. Wake up, America. And let me say this, speaking of America, I want to thank the American people, 80% of whom support Israel, 70% of whom support Israel wiping out Hamas. God bless each and every one of you. Diverse backgrounds, all colors, all religions. You understand. You understand good from evil. You understand barbarians who slaughter women and children, who do things that are unimaginable, which is why the media won't show what took place on October 7th. Joe Biden and Blinken funded October 7th. Donald Trump was destroying Iran. He bankrupted Iran. They didn't have arms. Biden and Blinken come into office, they arm them. They give sustenance to Hamas and Hezbollah. They violate the Teller Force Act. They're paying the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Biden, why don't you condemn the Nazis that run Iran, the Nazis that run Hamas, the Nazis that run Hezbollah by name? You know their names? Rather than trashing the Jewish elected leader of Israel, why don't you name them? Look at their human rights abuses. Why don't you give a damn? You stand there with the King of Jordan twice. You know what the King of Jordan does to his people? You know how many people he's executed? You know how many people he's thrown in prison, including his stepbrother? You know anything about him? You know about Sisi in Egypt? Oh, a moderate Arab. Moderate. He slaughters people. He imprisons people. He cuts off free speech. Do you understand, Biden, who you've thrown in with? Against the Jewish people in Israel, I have nothing but contempt for this man. My father was right. He was 17 when he joined the Army after Pearl Harbor. We grew up in Philadelphia, right next door to Biden. And he always said to me, that is a bad man, Biden. Do not trust that man. I don't trust him. I have nothing but contempt for him. And I'm done.
Oh, Mark Levin laying it out. Sad day for America, sad day for the cause of liberty and freedom, and he's emboldening the worst actors on the world stage. Thank you for being with us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Yeah. Mark Levin, he certainly, didn't hold back on, expressing himself probably a little bit strongly for some of our viewers. I apologize for that. But it just shows you really, how Biden is really falling into the trap of being one of the nations who are all going to come against Israel in the end. If you're looking at the scriptures, the prophecies in the scriptures there, talking about how all the nations, including even the UK and France and anyone else that may have been a supporter of Israel, will come against Israel and the Messiah steps in, and you are in for one big shock if you're siding against Israel. So, apple of God's eye, whether you like it or not. Anyway, so let's go to the 5th promo that Gordon's put together, and this will be showing and demonstrating a little bit more about what the book's all about. Be sure to get this book because it is fascinating to have all of these facts, especially when you want to talk to other people who may be in need of having a little bit more facts and rather than fiction. So Israel, Gaza, and Hamas, and what you need to know.
We've all heard the chanting at the protest marches. From a river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Of course, there's a great debate as to what the protesters really mean. To me, it raises a much bigger question. Whose land is it? And the truth, of course, is that God has got very different ideas to what the protesters are chanting. And thankfully, he will have the last word. In this book, I've included lots of maps showing who controlled the land at different times, as well as showing the area that God says in Genesis and Joshua and elsewhere in the Bible will be allocated to the Jewish people. I began this book as a small pamphlet to help viewers to talk with their families and neighbours when they got asked questions. It's grown to 260 pages with 8 pages of maps and 8 pages of coloured photographs. I'm praying it'll help you to answer questions and to understand what the real situation is in Israel and Gaza and the evilness of Hamas. Details of how you can obtain a copy are on the screen.
Oh my goodness, thank you, Gordon. Gordon, as I said right at the beginning, Gordon goes and writes all of these books, gets them all done and dusted and everything, and presents them to the public for a donation. And it only benefits the foundation, the Revelation Foundation, which in turn helps these programs to continue to be aired. And I want to say thank you to Gordon because he's given his time and his efforts and his authorship for free. That's really commendable and very helpful to our viewers. We need to do things that have, a real purpose in life and something that will stand to times indefinite. And truth is the truth, and this is what we need to get out there. I'm going to be looking at some other things, but before I go there, let me read some of the emails that are coming in as well. And I thank you for taking part in this, live at revelationtv.com, etc., etc. John writes in, he says, "Hi, Howard, great to see you. I've been to Gaza in 2006 to a place called Gush Kativ. My mum and I met some of the Jews who were removed from Gaza, and they gave their testimonies of what happened." Very interesting, this. That was to facilitate peace, and 18 years later, it hasn't worked. May God bless Israel and the Jewish people. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Met you at the gala dinner in Belfast a few years ago, John from Ireland. You know, I'm glad you brought this up, and I don't think it's something that people have really grasped. The Jews gave up Gaza, which was a thriving place for, I think it was mainly for vegetation, growing fruits and all those things that were in need for a daily diet. And the Jews didn't want to give it up. Some of them were just saying, listen, this is an amazing place and we're doing really well. But the nation of Israel decided they thought it would bring peace and give the Palestinians a purpose and a better way of life. All those buildings and the places and the areas where they could actually thrive. And what have they done? You say, I can hear you, but Israel's done it. No. For years after year after year, Hamas has been firing rockets from there. And as you heard earlier from some of the videos we've showed and some of the stats that we've given you, those rockets that Hamas sends out, so many of them fall on their own people. They don't even reach the targets. And when they've just gone haywire, some have actually landed in other parts of Israel that have also killed Palestinians living in other areas. So the Palestinians in the other areas as well actually have not benefited at all and have been just as if you like, targeted, as the Israelis have, by these Hamas rockets that have just gone haywire. So I just want to mention that, and thank you so much for bringing that up. Okay, let me go to the next one. Good on you, Howard, for getting this out there, the truth. And God bless Israel. God bless you all at Rev TV. Blessings, A. Okay. Democracy is being replaced by hypocrisy. The new world order is coming, and we lift our heads in that direction, in the direction of God. We love you all and will be strengthened in our time of trouble. The Holy Spirit, hear us as we pray. Paul and Ruth, thank you. Bless you. Another one here. Hi, Howard. People have forgotten that Hamas started this war by slaughtering well over 12,000 innocent men and women and children. I think, was there 12,000? I don't think it was as many as that. But anyway, more like 1,200. I don't know what the actual figure was in the end. But they were targeting women and children in the most barbaric way. This we were talking about October the 7th, no doubt. And Israel has the right to finish what Hamas started, and they will, says the writer, no name. Another one. Hi, Howard. I could cry for Israel. Those Hamas leaders are laughing and taunting Israel with those poor hostages that still got them, haven't they? And they won't release them. I wonder if I trust them that they've even got them still alive. I doubt it, to be honest. Anyway, good will overcome evil. God is love, and we need our churches and our government to stand with Israel and stand up for them and speak out for them. And God bless you all, says Kathleen from Northern Ireland. Thank you. Laura says, hi, Howard, great show tonight. The speech by Mark Levin had me applauding the TV screen. Someone who teaches the truth, she says. An amazing speech. The world, wake up. Wake up, America, wake up. So it reminds me of a song that we wrote many years ago. We need to stand with Israel, says Laura. Absolutely. Debbie writes in, the thing is seen and known is Iran does not really like America. Okay, well, yeah, they don't like anybody who's not a Muslim and not standing by the Hadith and the Quran, and they will, and their endeavours is to wipe Israel and the Jewish people off the face of this earth. We know their views, but Biden still gives, and I'm sure he knows. I don't know what you mean there. He is playing politics, says Debbie. Absolutely. Brian says, perhaps UNRWA should instead read UNWA, on war, as the UN becomes implicated by supporting Hamas in the way or in the war against Israel. Yeah, and who show that their hate for Israel through terrorism is the main thing here. Thank you, Brian. Okay. Let me pick on some other things that I've got. We've got 8 minutes left, just a couple of minutes. I want to show you just to remind you, this used to be a regular occurrence many years ago, probably in the late 90s. But Israeli buses were blown up indiscriminately with ordinary people, Jewish people, just going about their daily work. And just have a look at this little clip just to remind you.
These are things I don't think we see a lot of.
This picture, this video was taken by me in '96 from a window of a Jerusalem street, Jaffa Street, that was hit maybe 8 times by major bombs like that. 20 people died, around 20 people died here. What you hear is the alarm of all the stores that had their alarm getting, being triggered by the blast. And the situation were described in few of the reports as the mighty Israeli army with tanks and helicopters attacking unarmed population that was demonstrating for its legitimate rights. These people don't look very unarmed to me. They look armed and dangerous.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you very, very quickly again, and just to remind you, this was from a Palestinian cameraman who used to send me the videos, what was going on behind the scenes. The children look like they're just throwing stones, but they've got guns in their belt behind their back. Have a look at this.
Now here, this is quite interesting. We're seeing, for me for the first time, Palestinian gunmen. Please explain what you see, because this is, I wasn't there.
This just shows you what kind of chaos prevails around the army posts. You see an army post, you see a street, people are running back and forth, children throwing rocks. At the same time, there's shooting going on behind the children. It's this is a very strange kind of battleground. The soldiers are coming under attack, but they don't know what weaponry they should use.
Yeah, I just want to explain. The Palestinian cameraman who was friends with Alon, I didn't get to interview him for obvious reasons. So the Israeli cameraman is the one you saw back there when I was doing these interviews 20 years ago or whatever. I want to say that there is more behind the scenes, and I'd like to just show you this next little short piece as well, so-called peaceful demonstrations.
What they call peaceful demonstrations and peaceful clashes, if you can call it so, all the time, which creates a big confusion between the soldiers. It's very, very complex, complicated situation.
But what concerns me is that I don't see this on the news where you've got the Palestinians with weaponry provoking an attack here as well on a military outpost.
Because nobody can take these pictures. Nobody can take these pictures. It's very, very, very dangerous to take these pictures. And then why you see less and less of it. Even though the nights are full of incidents, there is exchange of fire every night in like 10 different places. What's amazing is this whole revolution, uprising, is adapted to TV news times. During the day, there are demonstrations, and they are performed around 10 or 12 o'clock, so there's enough time to take the pictures, edit it, and send it for the evening news in Europe and the States. While the nights are full of shooting incidents that cannot be covered at all and are not covered at all.
When I'm looking at this and I'm seeing Palestinian gunmen firing behind the children, so the children are in the front, you've got the Israeli soldiers on the other side, so right in the middle on the firing line are the children.
There's so much more, and I'm hoping to be able to find all that information in our archives as well, when I used to be getting and receiving the information from those two cameramen, the Palestinian cameraman and the Israeli. And they were good friends with each other, as indeed are many Palestinians and Arabs are good friends with the Israelis, and they live in peace and harmony and help each other, and it's incredible. I mean, can you imagine in any of the Arab countries for Israelis, for Jewish people to be part of a parliament or a dictatorship, as the case may be in some of these other lands, these Arab lands? You'd never ever get that. But in Israel, you've got Arabs, Palestinians, who are part of the government, the government body. They're there in the Knesset, you know, as representatives. Just incredible. Never get that anywhere else. Do you get, in the Arab nations, would you get synagogues? Not anymore, but in Israel, Israel allows churches and allows the mosque, and also especially the Dome of the Rock sitting on their Mount Moriah, which belonged to Abraham, which then in turn belonged to the Jews. and they're putting up with it. They've done it probably since, what, 1967 or whatever it was. I think it was when they got it back from Jordan. But anyway, here we go. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I just want to say this as well, because some of the things that the Palestinian cameraman used to send to us was like, for example, where supposedly someone had been shot. It's fake news, okay? Let's call it what it is. Somebody had been shot, a Palestinian had been shot by a so-called Israeli, and he was killed, and he'd be put in the ambulance. And then a couple of minutes later, he'd come walking, this dead body would actually come out of there smoking a cigarette. But let me just show you what else is fake news. I was watching Al Jazeera for no other reason other than trying to find out what the state of play was, and our hearts go out for those Palestinian, the children as well, and the families. It's just awful. But I came across this, and it looks like fake news to me. This is so-called somebody that had been shot by an Israeli sniper, so-called. But see what happens. Have a look.
Ruwa Qudday had gone out to get water. She was 14 years old. Israeli snipers shot her in front of the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. People tried to rescue her, but they had to flee for cover, leaving her behind. Ruwa Qudday had gone out to get water. She was 14 years old. Israeli snipers shot her in front of the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. People tried to rescue her, but they had to flee for cover, leaving her behind.
Okay, we've got about 20 seconds. Quickly, thank you, Howard, for tonight's program. Satan is getting afraid, hence what is happening in Gaza, etc., etc. And also, dear Howard, great show tonight, shocking about UNRWA and those involving helping Hamas. And others, I read that Hamas wanted loads of terrorist prisoners for just the hostages. It seems to me that one is stirring the pot, and the other one says, good evening, Howard. I get